Experts estimate that stage 6 load shedding is costing the economy billions of rand. Now, this comes as businesses lose more revenue as a result of these power cuts. Let's get some perspective now, and we speak to the President of Business Unity South Africa, Professor Bonang Mohale. Prof, thank you very much for your time. I don't know where to start because there's lots that is burning under my chest. Perhaps let's begin with the year. It was 2019, December to be exact. The President is in Egypt and he is forced to cut short his trip back to South Africa because we had gone into stage 6 load shedding. Fast forward to January 2023. We are on indefinite, and underline the word indefinite, load shedding stage 6. The President is preparing to go sell South Africa to Davos in Switzerland. We'll talk about the storyline that Team South Africa will sell there, but how is the President prepared to leave the country when we are on indefinite load shedding? Add to that the fact that we have been forced to pay more for a service that we sometimes not get. How does that make sense?
Oli, you're absolutely correct, my dear brother. And I think let's go back to the fact that in 15 years, we have not been able to solve this perennial problem of load shedding that started in February 2008. More than half of free South Africa has been spent in the dark. The timing could not have been worse. If you remember, on Tuesday, the 3rd of January, South Africa's national debt exceeded 3 trillion South African rands. To be more precise, it's 3.013 trillion rands, which means 170 billion of that is now going to be used just for interest payment per annum. Now, we are now rapidly approaching 18% of our national debt as interest payment, and we know in the world that countries that approach 20 percentage points are the ones that are likely to default on their national debt. This load shedding has now cost the South African economy in 2022 560 billion. There was a total of 6,400 gigawatts per hour of unserved energy in the country just in 2022. The cost to the South African economy is around 87 rand per kilowatt of electricity, which is not supplied. Remember that at stage 6, the cost is 6 billion a day. Between stages, it's 500 billion. It wipes off an entire percentage point of our GDP per annum, considering that in the last 10 years, this economy has not grown by more than 2 percentage points. So half of that we can attribute to it being absolutely decimated by load shedding. But let me just end, my dear brother, by saying, you know what really hurts us the most is the fact that this is now about 8 hours on average of load shedding a day, every day. If you are a big company and a big hospital like Netcare, in their last financial results, they spent 430 million rand just on the cost of diesel. If you are a small and medium enterprise, you now have to buy probably a Cummins generator at 380,000 rand, 43 kilovolts, and you now use 125 liters a day, every day, at 20 rand a liter. Yeah. So the big hospitals will simply reduce their profits. Small and medium enterprises are just going to be pushed into bankruptcy, and they're going to cease to exist at the time that we are really wanting to promote small and medium enterprises as the greatest employers. You also spoke about the president going to Davos, where all of us are scheduled to be there. There are 4 things that are keeping us awake at night, over and above the fact that South Africa has 1,001 challenges often with conflicting priorities. But if I pick up only 4 that we should be absolutely intellectually honest about if we want to be taken seriously by these investors that we've been courting and inviting to the country. Number 1 on that list has to be youth unemployment. When young people of military age are sitting at home twiddling their thumbs, not only are we asking for trouble, we are actively inviting it. The second is what you have started with, this notion of a stable, of a reliable, but predictable energy supply, rather than just our obsession with Eskom. So we should take it from whence it comes.
Yeah.
The third, for me, is state capture. Remember, state capture stole 1.4 trillion rands in 5 years. Every year, in the non-wasted years, we talk about this economy siphoning off 200 billion a year every year just to the Zupta families. The last one for me is lack of implementation of the structural economic reforms that we've been talking about probably in the last 15 years. Back to you.
Prof. Mohale, I suspect I may be asking this question out of sheer ignorance. So again I ask, this team, South Africa, will be led by the President, and now we know that you're also going to be part of this trip. Is there something that WEF is going to help us with now, with this energy crisis, that requires the President to leave the country at a time like this?
So the answer is no, because we've been doing this every year. This will be my 16th trip to Davos. I'm not counting the ones that we have hosted here in Africa. This time, I'm actually also ambivalent with the corona subvariant XBB 1.5 on the rise in China, but also in Europe, especially at the time where I'm a member of the community of chairpersons of the World Economic Forum. So I have been intimately involved in crafting the 400 conversations that we're going to have over these few days. The world is saying, look, there are 10 big challenges, but maybe let me talk about 3 of them. Number 1, of course, is this unprovoked, unwarranted, and therefore unjustified Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Number 2 is the pandemic, which is still with us, and in countries like China, actually on the up. The third is the issue of climate change. Probably I'm not even talking about the energy crisis in Europe. I'm not talking even about the global supply chains that have been disrupted. If you have got a car that is involved in an accident in December, people have been waiting 6 months just for these components ordered by original equipment manufacturers. Here at home, of course, we've got our own challenges. But you see, what really should concern all of us as South Africans, it's not the fact that NERSA gave Eskom 18.7% tariff increases. Last year, this was 9.6%, let's say 10%. So for the last 10 years, the cost of electricity has been going up on average 30%.
Yeah.
Your and my salary has not gone up by 10%. At the time that South Africa ought to be going to the World Economic Forum and saying, we want to be honest and upfront with you. We are now holding the world record for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah. So what's the story then, Professor? What's the story to Davos by Team South Africa?
So I think we will continue being intellectually honest by saying our infrastructure is collapsing, especially our energy, our water, but also our fuel. Transnet is continuing to let the country down because of its own cyber attack last year, the KwaZulu-Natal floods that really decimated it. But Durban Port is the third from the bottom, precipitating Maputo to grow up by 36% in just 6 months. I'm not even talking about Amadela, Ngogufa, and Ngobona. These mafias, business forum mafias, that are going around and demanding equity for nothing, and that people should be hired, not from the province of KwaZulu-Natal, but from their own affections. So I think if we are clear that, look, yes, we are the most unequal society in the world, the country with the highest unemployment rate in the world, the country with the highest small and medium enterprise failure rate in the world, the country with the highest GBV failure rate in the world, not by a factor of 2, 5 times the global average. The worst G20 country as per the G20 research group report that was just released, and that we are hemorrhaging scarce and critical skills, that we are the most violent country in the world, and indeed we lose on average 57 people because of road fatalities. If we focus on 3, no more than 5 key things on South Africa, we might just be taken serious. But we have to be upfront about our challenges, not wait until we are asked about it. There was a time when we went to Davos that we'll fill the whole house, South Africa house. But now at the moment, in fact, we have lost our shine because we have been over-promising and under-delivering consistently for the last 28 years.
And the key word there is failing consistently. Professor, let's come to the world of business, which is the sector you represent. The Global Risks Report comes out and says the cost of living crisis is dominating the world view right now among the key risks or risk factors that countries in the world face today. And they warn that this might provoke civil unrest if left unchecked. But here's the point around the business community. They are clear that if business leaders do not wake up to this, they might just be out of business themselves. What do you think is the role of business when the world says the cost of living crisis is the tinder?
So the role of business can continue to be what we learned in Ivy League universities when we were studying for our own advancement, that the primary purpose of business is shareholder maximization. I think business needs to say the primary role of business today is to survive. Because if you can survive, you can make money until it comes out of your ears. Secondly, we need to say the role of business is to bring about this notion of shared value, to stop being just obsessed with the shareholder returns, but consider a broader stakeholder community, the society, the community in which we are located. Thirdly, we need to say business needs to do no harm. It sounds passive, but our employees come to work whole. They need to leave every afternoon whole. This notion of health, safety, security, and environment. The pandemic has showed us that as business, we need to focus on mental health and the well-being of our own people. The last one, I think we need to say business needs to continue to do good by doing well, or doing well by doing good. Because you see, business can continue to be an island of prosperity in a sea of poverty. Because we know that when business does well, society generally does well. Remember, Toli, that I think South Africa has experienced this more than most countries in the world. The 2 weeks in July of 2021 of a failed insurrection and rampant looting has demonstrated beyond any shadow of doubt that until and unless business is awake, is sensitized, and it is progressive in its actions, not just in its articulations, that which happened in July is going to happen again and again and again. We need to say, as business, let's choose the areas where we are going to invest with or without the support of government, better with the support of government. But it's clear that if South Africa is going to work, it's because business has decided that it will make South Africa work. Not because business is our second chance, but because business is our last chance. But for us to be able to do that, business itself needs a serious intervention.
All right.
Because we can't speak of a just society when business is seen to be at the apex of injustice. Tony?
Professor Bonang Mohale, President of Business Unity South Africa, I thank you very much for your time this